Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll put a telephone number on screen so that you can call with your questions and the comments for my guest. Once again, is the acting Prime Minister of St. Lucia and also Minister with responsibility for equity, social justice, and empowerment. So you can call right now. We go up until 10 o'clock, at which time we'll be concluding with the clip that peaked. Do we have a call? No, we've lost that call. As you go around the St. Lucia, I'm sure looking at the coastline, we spoke about the northern part of the island, your constituency. But your concerns with regard to ancillary canneries and also dennery and soufre, I imagine that there's certainly a need for some kind of a long-term plan for those communities. But we have a call. Good evening. Go ahead with your contribution, caller.
Yeah, good evening to you.
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
Okay, Spider, good night.
Hi, good evening.
Spider, a question I want to ask you. What is the real issue with the St. Jude's Hospital?
Well,
okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
okay. As you would well be aware, there was an investigation that was carried out, and the report on that investigation is in. And some of the recommendations, we have looked at some of the recommendations of that investigation. In that report, it was said that given what obtains right now, that the structure is not suitable for a hospital, and that they would require a lot of resources, almost to the tune of what it has cost so far, or even more, to get it up to speed. So that in the report it was said that it may even be cheaper to build a new hospital. So that has to be looked at. That consideration has to be looked at. And if the structure is not suitable for a hospital, we will have to take a decision as to what exactly we do, how we proceed from here. There are a number of options that we have. We can utilize the structure for something that is more suitable for, perhaps say a school or something to that effect, and build something that is appropriate for a hospital. There are other considerations that will be looked at. What the statement that you heard was just one option, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the option. Cabinet has to meet and decide exactly how we proceed given that situation, and of course, as we always do, we will let the general public in as soon as possible on what is the decision of government as far as that is concerned.
We have a caller 9. Thank you so much for holding on. Please go ahead with your contribution, caller.
Yes, Tim, good night. And
hi.
Good night, the Minister.
Good night to you, sir.
Good night to you.
Yes, Mr. Minister, you highlighted the issue of garbage disposal, and that is something that has really been weighing on my mind, because even with all of the rains during this week, you could have seen persons still, putting their garbage out there near drains, in the hope that the waste, solid waste management would pass and pick up this garbage, even when the country was closed. Now it would appear that there is some inability on the part of government to really address that situation. And you did highlight that that was one of the major issues confronting us in terms of flooding and so on. What do you believe is the reason for this sort of approach where it would appear that the government lacked the will to deal with this problem head on?
Thank you so much for calling, sir.
Well, I mean, I agree with you that it is a problem, and we have to take it more seriously and deal with it. I believe it is a question of ensuring that people take their responsibilities more seriously and carry out their duties, because even when it is government-sanctioned work at times, you see the garbage is left on the roadside near the drains for a prolonged period, and the bags and so on are not collected, and when you have heavy rains, they can easily be washed into the drains and cause blockages and flooding. So I agree with you, that is something that we have to look at and deal with more diligently.
Let's turn our attention to another call. Good evening. Hello. Hello, good evening to you, caller. Okay, we lost that caller. So I imagine that we will be waiting for another contributor to the broadcast. Mr. Producer, do we have another call? No. Okay, we apparently still have the call? No. Okay, but let's focus on quickly answering Canary so Fred Henry.
Yes, I mean, in all seriousness, we have to consider evacuating, relocating rather, some of the people in those areas because, I mean, the remedial measures may be, too exorbitant given our meager resources. We may have to just relocate some of the people in those areas and look at the standards, building standards, drainage situation, and so on. Because it appears that the waterfront, for example, in Ancillary is below sea level, and you have the sea surges coming in at times of flooding and so on. And even before there is heavy rain, the village begins to experience flooding, and with very little rain, it experiences flooding. In Denry, you have a similar situation where the water comes in very easily, and the drainage is a problem. So we may have to very well look at the relocation. That might be a cheaper option rather than trying to do, what is necessary.
But that's not on the agenda for this government.
Well, at least not this term. Certainly not in this term. That is something that has to be looked at long term. The engineering consideration has to be taken into account. And when you talk about relocating people, you must find ideal sites for relocation.
Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening to you.
Good evening to me.
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Honorable Leonard Montoot.
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
Yes, sir. I mean, as a man, I am very disappointed, the way government can spend money sending people to the moon, worrying about missiles from coming over the ocean and all these war talks, and we cannot find a way to stop a hurricane or to divert a hurricane. It's amazing that all that research, all that science and technology, we cannot attack a depression before it becomes a hurricane. I'm very disappointed about that, And I think America and Britain and so on should spend more money on research. How can we stop the hurricane from forming?
But don't you think they might have tried already without any kind of success?
I don't think they tried hard enough. They're more interested in war with North Korea. And they haven't tried hard enough, honestly. I mean, they have too much technology, too much science. Then you cannot stop a depression from becoming a storm and becoming a hurricane. Come on, Timmy. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. But basically, this has been with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
For an eternity. Hurricanes, storms, etc., blizzards, you name it. I mean, don't you think realistically that scientists, being the kind of people that they are curious, always looking for solutions to various problems, they would have made a considered effort without any success at all? But we have a call. Good evening, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good night, Tim. How are you?
I'm okay, sir.
Honorable Minister, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Tim, I'm glad to see you taking notes. I was wanting to say this is the third time I'll be calling and asking you to have a secretary to take notes when calls are being made on this program. Now this program is so crucial, not only for St. Lucia, but for the region and the world. And I'm glad to know that you're taking some notes. So let me make 3 points. I heard on the news tonight, and I heard the Archdeacon make some points about the comment the Minister of National Security was making regarding the visitation to the prison, regarding the gallows. I think that he exercised and he expressed some sympathy for the thought that hanging may be reintroduced into St. Lucia. But I also remember that when the good Lord was on the cross, he said to the thief, "Know that you're not guilty of having committed a sin or crime, that's why you're on the cross. But because you have confessed, I will grant you pardon. Today you shall be free in paradise." So I suspect some of these guys who are causing the police a serious heartache, they need to be punished. And if somewhere it is written, "He that lives by the gun will die by the gun, and who lives by the sword will be perished by the sword," maybe we need to say this into the churches for everybody to hear, to reflect. The second thing is this. I noticed that the Honorable Minister is right. We have some serious issues, and I'm hoping to follow up with him officially at his office, if not later this week, next week, God's willing. But the very important thing I would like to register to you, Mr. Minister, And when I'm through, I want to make a motion, and I hope somebody motions a second to my motion. We need the money. I heard that St. Louis and some of the other islands have been elevated. We are no longer developing states. We have reached. We have arisen. But I think reparation is in place for our small islands. It just seems to be naughty that the entire islands of the Caribbean, where the best quality of slave workers came from, are still trying to get reparation for those services. I noticed earlier this year in England, the West Indian men who went to the First and Second World War, they're being commended, but they're not being compensated. I noticed when the University of the West Indies, they started something, and it has gone kind of quiet. The Rastafarian community, we have to say hats off to them. They have been pushing this. Mr. Minister, I think you need to take this to the attention of the Honorable Cabinet of Ministers and let us get it together from St. Lucia, get it together from the OECS, get it together from CARICOM. Let's go back to Mother England. Reparation must be done. We need the money now. We can't say we don't need it.
Thank you so much for calling, sir.
I want to make the motion, and I wish I get a second.
Thank you so much. I imagine every time you're in a bind, you would go looking to see who owes you. Is that the case? What's happening?
Yes. But I mean, that issue of reparation is a complicated one. I mean, England and France and those countries will not admit to some of the atrocities that they are responsible for of the past, and they may.
That's because of the implications.
Because of the implication. And at the same time, to get them to, to own up and, provide reparation may be a little difficult. We may have to look at the approach that we take as far as that is concerned. And, because I think it's owed to us, really, because we enrich those countries to a great extent. The resources of our island, the toil of our labor, contributed to the development and building of those so-called empires, and that, if we are in the situation that we are in today, it's owed to us that they can, return the favor.
We have a call. Good evening.
Hello?
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
Yes. Yeah. Question for you, Timothy. Have you visited St. Jude's Hospital?
No, sir, I haven't.
No, you haven't.
No.
And then you feel qualified to question the minister when you have had the opportunity as a journalist. Don't you think that journalists should go down there and see for themselves what is being discussed, what is all about? So you can report back to your viewers from a first-hand point of view?
You're right, sir. No arguments in this.
Now, secondly, Mr. Minister,
Yes,
I have a suggestion. We have all these hurricanes, and we have, after disaster, we ball in. Don't you think that the time has come when the government must spearhead an initiative where all the engineers and a whole lot of people, the STEP program, where they go to different houses and see whether the houses are hurricane resistant and do what needs to be done before the disaster comes, instead of balling and the insurance companies, everybody get together for the benefit, because it will benefit everybody. It will provide employment now and save millions of dollars. Think about this, sir.
that's certainly a
Thank
good
you.
suggestion, sir.
Thank you so much for calling, sir.
Yeah.
What's your name, Mr. Minister?
That's a good suggestion. I mean, again, like I said, the preemptive measures would be a lot cheaper than the recovery. And so if what he's suggesting, they can be coordinated, that would certainly be a good move. I mean, and not just hurricane, we are also in the earthquake zone. I mean, because St. Lucia has not really been impacted in any serious way by earthquake, we discount earthquakes, but that is another threat that we face as well.
Hello, good evening to you, caller. Go ahead, if your contribution.
Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
Acting Prime Minister.
All right, good evening, sir.
How are you?
Not too bad, thanks.
Yeah. Some years ago, when the IMF categorized all all the countries in the world. They had developed countries, developing countries, newly industrialized countries, and they had a category they referred to as never to be developed countries. And in that category fell a country like Bangladesh. Okay? You hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
No, you know why? Because given the topography of Bangladesh, they face the monsoons every year. I mean, this is inevitable, inescapable. I mean, in other words, they have to think in terms of 1 year, you know, because of that situation. Now, given our situation, fast forward, our situation here, now we are being categorized as middle income here now. But given the increased intensity and frequency of these storms, we might very well find ourselves in a category like that, you know, Minister. Because if this thing is going to continue, and as you well said, if it happens to a chain of islands, where do we get help from? You know what I'm saying? And there is a limit to what mitigation, you know, mitigation cannot, I mean, we could do the best we can. And the suggestion by the last caller was impeccable. Great suggestion.
Yeah.
But given the ferocity of these storms, you know, there is a limit to what we could do. So we could very well find ourselves, worst case scenario, every year facing that kind of situation. How do we escape that? You know? Do we make, isn't that a call for us in the Caribbean? I mean, we've been playing around with CARICOM for so long, and we find that it's so useful, CARICOM and OECS and so on, unity, when these things come around. That is a call, a clarion call, that we strengthen ourselves, our union in terms of governance, economies, and so on and so forth, to be part of something bigger. Because look at America. Yes, the storm could hit Miami, it could hit Texas, but there's the rest of America to come to the call. Because if we as a country, we're helping Dominica, but it's not mandatory, it's not obligatory, it's discretional. Because we're not, Dominica not part of St. Lucia to say, you know what I'm saying? We need to start viewing the Caribbean as one. And then you have the issue where Timothy raised. That's a possibility. Barbuda have no people again. Where do they go? To Antigua. Suppose Antigua is demolished too. Where do they go? We have to face the reality in the coming years, given the situation continues as is and as predicted by a lot of people, the scientists and so on, given the climate change and so on. We have to face the reality that we, like these Syrians, these people living in these war zones and so on, that want to get out at any cost. And people in the Caribbean might very well fall in that category. That will not be restricted to Haitians alone now. People might be jumping on canoes and attempting to go to Florida. People might be, a lot of people who have the green cards and so on might be attempting to go and stay in America, heading for mainland where it's safe, because this is a very serious business. I mean, this thing is so all-encompassing that interventions like garbage disposal and so on and so forth, tree trimming, and yes, this is good domestic, but given the intensity of these things, Minister, there is some serious thought has to go into how we go into the future, my brother. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for calling.
Welcome. Some sobering comments there by the caller. I mean, it's serious because we are seeing those intense storms, and who is to say that in the near future we're not going to see even stronger hurricanes? I mean, you talk about over 160 miles per hour. Well, what if we get to 200 miles per hour? I mean, can we build structures to withstand that? I mean, can we afford to build structures to withstand that? And so, but at the same time, while I recognize what the caller is saying, we cannot just sit and do nothing. We have to do the best we can to at least try to deal with the impending situation.
We have another caller line. Hello, good evening. You're on the air.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Minister. Good evening, Mr. Polio.
Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah. I noticed like majority of the callers are like senior people, and like a lot of their contributions, I don't really mean to judge, but a lot of their contributions are a bit pathetic. Let's be realistic. Like, can anybody be fully prepared for a hurricane? No. Can somebody build a house that would be able to withstand a hurricane? No. We're talking category 4, 5 right now. Let's say we go up to category 8, 9, and 10. Do you really and truly think you can build something that would withstand a hurricane?
There isn't any category beyond 6, caller? Beyond 5, sorry. There isn't any category beyond 5.
No, I'm just telling you. Let's just say we start, let's go into like 6, 7, and 8. But realistically, why don't we start being environmentally friendly? And then we will see where we're going to end up. Because how you treat the earth is how the earth is going to actually react towards you. But apart from all the hurricanes, I just want to ask Mr. Minister one question. When election was going on and all that type of stuff, we heard a lot of stuff about like marijuana being legalized. And right now it's like, it's just dead. You still have police officers harassing individuals for one spliff. I mean, you're really going to waste a magistrate's or a judge's time over one spliff still? And what about if election was tomorrow? Would marijuana be legalized tomorrow? What is being done? Another thing I'm going to say again to Mr. Minister, it is embarrassing that our judicial system is so, how would I put it, is so, what would I call, like a kindergarten type of atmosphere. And it's like, you have so many cases in there. You have people, the cases being adjourned, like for an entire year. What system, what law system allows such a case to be adjourned for an entire year? You have people being remanded where the police officers literally set up the cases. You understand? And it's like people just sitting in prison, they're being more depressed. I don't want to mention names, but I mean, there's so many people in there right now that none of the cases are moving forward. Every time it's a matter of to come to court, it's like something goes wrong, something gets adjourned. Where in the history of a case you're going to hear a matter is adjourned for an entire year? That's what I would call perfect injustice. And if the individual parents had a name at the end of it, that individual would have been out of prison already. And Mr. Minister, you would know who I'm talking about. He's one of the guys from the show, say, Wilton's Yard, and that's one of the individuals. His matter got adjourned for an entire year, where the entire case was like a conspiracy. But anyway, that was my contribution.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, first let me deal with the justice system. I mean, our government is mindful of the atrocious situation that exists right now, and we're doing everything we can, including looking at hiring more magistrates and increasing the number of courts that we have, and so on. Now, on the question of the marijuana, well, for sure, the caller didn't hear me talk about the marijuana during the campaign. I did after elections, and I deliberately did not mention it during the campaign, but I did after. And I'm still of the view that it is not right to imprison a youngster and have our young people carry criminal records because they're caught with a stick of marijuana. And I am still committed to advancing the call for, first of all, that the records of people who have been convicted for example, for a stick of marijuana, that will be expunged, and that we review our laws as it pertains to marijuana. I'm still committed to that.
Final call. Good evening. Go ahead with your contribution.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Motu, the Honorable Minister.
Yes, good evening.
I just wanted to make a contribution.
Go ahead.
I listened very carefully to the measures which you mentioned for mitigation in terms of impacting, reducing the impact of the hurricanes and so forth. But I'm wondering, in St. Lucia, we have this problem of enforcement. in the whole scheme of reviewing and reforming whether the DCA, Development Control Authority, would be looked at. Because it's all good and well to have new building codes, but in terms of the enforcement and ensuring that when persons apply for permission, that the law is complied with. For instance, we don't have our planning legislation is outdated. We don't have any regulations to govern those things. So I think in terms of looking at the whole picture, in terms of disaster preparedness and so forth, the DCA should be taken into consideration, whether you're thinking of revamping the DCA as it operates now to ensure that there is integrity and enforcement of the legislation. That's my concern, and I would like to just mention that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the contribution.
Thanks for your contribution. The caller has raised a serious point, because we enact laws, but at the end of the day, the laws are of no use if they are not enforced. And so whatever has to be done, whether it means augmenting the staff of the Ministry of Planning and DCA to ensure that those laws are enforced, that I think we should do it. In addition to that, I mean, talking about laws, there are some archaic laws that are on our books that we should do something about. And while we look to strengthen laws, there are some laws I think we need to do away with. Talking about strengthening laws, well, we earlier spoke of enforcing, evacuation orders, enforcing, shutdowns, and things of that sort. Again, having it as a law is one thing, enforcing it is another. So these are, serious considerations that we have to look into. And, I think some of the ways of the past can be revisited in ensuring that we do a little better. For example, at the community level, I know growing up in my community, you used to have the constabulary working with the local council. They're not police officers really, but, they can free the police to do more serious patrols and crime fighting, while they police, those other matters that can be considered to be more minor.
Yeah. Mr. Acting Prime Minister, thank you so much for being my guest on this evening's
It was certainly a pleasure, and I just want to say in ending, Tim, that our prayers go out to neighbors and brothers and sisters in the rest of the Caribbean, Dominica and the other islands that have been impacted by the hurricane, and also our neighbor and friend Mexico that has been affected by the volcano. And thank God, the earthquake. I say thank God that we have been spared, and that we should spare a thought for those that have been affected.
Thank you once again, Mr. Acting Prime Minister, Mr. Leonard Motut. To you, thank you so much for taking time off to watch the broadcast and to participate via your calls. If it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live. Time now for the clip that peaked.
I have no problem with the storm, I thank God. The small embassy. Yes, I heard about them, but I just cannot understand. Well, what happened to Dominica?
Finish.
That's a second blow. Well, Dominica won't get a third one, eh? The Almighty will save them for the third one. But tell the zombies for me, please, get a shelter when it's hurricane season. Yesterday morning, I stand up in the balcony, I saw a zombie on the road. I thought it was a zombie day. So you all have zombie day during hurricane time. Oh, well, Mr. Busquets, please tell them for me. Whenever they let St. Lucian know when they give a warning, stay at their home.
Again, as a broadcast, thank you so much for watching. My name is Timothy Poleon saying good night. See you next time.